Let's get some more information then. We're now joined on the line by Shenilla Mohamed, the Executive Director of Amnesty International South Africa, to shed more light on this. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you so very much for being with us here on SABC News.
Good afternoon, Flo, and good afternoon to your viewers.
Of course, we're hearing that, a lot of people have been hacked. Thousands of iPhones worldwide have been hacked using this Pegasus spyware. Should we be afraid? I mean, what do we know and what should we know about this and how it's being used?
So, Flo, Amnesty International's tech team joined hands with an NGO that is based out of Paris called Forbidden Stories. And we worked with 80 journalists from 17 countries around the world. 17 media organizations around the world in 10 countries. And basically, using cross-cutting technology, we really went in and tried to find out exactly where the software is being used. Now, your viewers may not know this, but this software is very undetectable. It's very difficult to detect it, which is why it's so easy, for the clients to get away with it. And I think that, in answer to your question, should we be afraid? I think so. I mean, I think that, the fact that leaders have not been spared, the fact that, anybody who is a client of NSO can go and request surveillance on an individual or a number of individuals is extremely worrying. And we've seen how dangerous this is in the case of Jamal Khashoggi. When, according to our analysis, both him, his fiancée, his wife, his sons were being surveyed before his assassination and even after. We've seen in Mexico, how journalist, the journalist Cecilio Pinard, who was actually surveyed a week before he was actually killed. So, we are seeing the repercussions of this type of surveillance. And the people who are doing it are not doing it out of, they're doing it with malicious intent.
Yeah, I mean, this really does indeed point to quite a scary picture. It seems you anticipated my next question, because I was going to say, the fact that President Cyril Ramaphosa is one of 14 world leaders who've been targeted by this Pegasus spyware case surely indicates that nobody is safe at this time. It clearly is very highly sophisticated. I mean, you talk about the fact that it's not very easily detectable. I mean, in this sort of a situation, how then are we able then to protect ourselves? I mean, it seems as though this is something that, no one can really protect themselves against. I mean, the fact that you're even saying even world leaders not being spared, I mean, what measures then does that leave the rest of us? I mean, are we just sort of vulnerable and we should just accept that?
Well, first of all, I think, the fact that the Amnesty tech team was able to detect it means that, it is detectable, and that, if we use the right resources, we can detect it. But, what do we do? I mean, I think it's really up to our states to ensure that their citizens are protected. And this is why we are calling for a moratorium on the use, the export, the transfer, and, just the basic usage of this type of technology. And if states step up, and one of the reasons, that we are really making this very public and bringing it to the attention of particularly the states, to show them that, even they are not safe. And until the states step in to protect their citizens, by imposing a global moratorium, by ensuring that, this company's software is not easily accessible in the countries that they are in, you're right, it's going to be very difficult for the average person to make sure that their phone is safe. So, it's very worrying. And I think that, really we have to work together as a global community to bring an end to this and to hold Israel to account as well, because Israel has to ensure that companies that are, that its own Israeli companies are abiding by international law, and that, they are not allowing the export of the software to countries that have a history of oppression, that have a history of trying to, oppress its citizens. And, the fact that it's now presidents or heads of state as well adds another dimension to it.
Yeah, I mean, you've briefly spoken about, the kind of work that Amnesty International has done, and indeed, I suppose we should all be grateful to Amnesty International, indeed, for exposing what's happened and being able to detect what's going on. But let's talk about what initially sort of motivated Amnesty International to start analyzing this sort of data from the leaked data on Pegasus. What was I suppose one could ask, what was the red flag?
Well, the red flag was that, a number of journalists, in particular, were being targeted, and a number of activists. And it was really quite directed targeting. I mean, they knew exactly where these people were. They knew their whole lives. And that this spyware is secretly installed on victims' phones, and it gives the attacker complete access to your entire life, your messages, your emails, where you're going. It records your whatever you're saying. So it's literally, right in your life. And of course, we noticed that, we were taking stock of what was happening, particularly with activists and journalists. And of course, this finding about the heads of state is unprecedented. It wasn't something that we expected. So again, it's another shocking revelation for us. But that was really our interest, So over 2 years, we have been really working with journalists that have been under risk, with media houses, with organizations, to try to find out how they are tracking these people. I mean, for example, how did they know what was happening with the Mexican activist I spoke of, or with Khashoggi? Yes. And I think that is what really led us to the development of this project, which we call the Pegasus project. And over the next couple of weeks, more and more revelations will be coming out, because we're working with media partners, including The Guardian, including the BBC, and other media partners, in order to reveal what has been going on within the surveillance industry. And I think it's really critical that this information is out there, so that strict regulations are put into place in order to allow this wild, wild west type of mentality that we see in the surveillance industry being brought under control, because they actually have no right to do this. They have no right to surveil you. It goes against international law. It goes against South Africa's constitution. And it's really an infringement of individuals' basic human rights.
And I mean, on the back of that, and perhaps I should have asked this earlier on, I mean, I read that, in fact, Rwanda had selected President Cyril Ramaphosa's number as one of those, I suppose, being surveyed. And that that's quite scary when you talk about what the information could then be used for. So two questions here. What does it say then, I mean, in terms of our national security as a start, but also just a back question to that. I mean, what could could Rwandans have been looking for? Whoever's involved in Rwanda could have been looking for in targeting the president of South Africa. What indeed could they have been looking for, and what could it then be used for? I mean, these are really quite scary things that I suppose the intelligence and the president's team are perhaps looking into at this time then.
Well, it's difficult for us to say exactly what they wanted or why they were doing it. But, the bottom line is that, Rwanda is one of the clients of the NSO Group. And, our analysis has shown that Rwanda, basically they have surveillance on around 3,500 activists and journalists and opposition party leaders. So, Rwanda definitely is a country that is using this software. And from what one of our partner organizations, The Guardian, reported was that, this happened in 2019 when President Ramaphosa was there. Now, what information they're looking for and what they can do with it, of course, we know that, tapping into a president's phone it can be extremely dangerous for the country's security. Yeah. So we can't say what they wanted with it. But the fact that his number came up as a number of interest, and, because Amnesty doesn't have access to the president's phone, it was difficult for us to then, do what we did with some of the journalists' phones and the activists' phone and identify traces of the software. But we are quite sure that, the 14 heads of state that we have mentioned, at some point, their numbers have been used with the software, and that, they have come up. Of course, it's very, very dangerous, as you rightly say, because, heads of state and governments have all sorts of issues that they don't want to be made public.
Yeah.
And, if a head of state is not safe, then who is safe? And so, the state security has to close ranks on this and make sure that, not only is the president safe, but all South Africans are safe, because again, if the president's rights are violated, so are ours. If this surveillance equipment is being used against any average South African as well.
Just as we close off our conversation, Shenilla, I mean, this is so interesting to me. Is there a possibility then, given that the president's number was indeed being surveyed, or that it is being surveyed, I mean, is there a possibility of certain leaks? I mean, certain, some of his information being leaked out there? I mean, there certainly should be a concern at this time as to, who has that information now, who has access to that sort of information, whether it be, his personal things or whether it's political things. I mean, I wonder if this then means that there could be some kind of leak and access to serious information that was on his phone.
Well, Flo, once people have access to your lives, what they do with the information is out of your control. Yeah. And I think that is the scariest part of this. So, I can't say for sure that things will be released, leaked out about President Ramaphosa. But what I can say is that with the software, the attackers are able to access your life, every aspect of your life, including your photos, including, your conversations. And so they have that information, and then they decide what they want to do with it. Yeah. So that is the most frightening part of this. So, I can't absolutely say that President Ramaphosa's information will be leaked, but I can say that, there is a high risk that, whoever has that information will, be able to use it to, achieve whatever goal they want, to achieve, which is why they put that number under surveillance in the first place. So, it is frightening, and it is something that, every one of us has to take seriously, but most importantly, the states have to take seriously.
All right, Shenilla, very interesting indeed. Thank you so much for your input and shedding some light on this. I think a lot of us were quite confused really as to what exactly is going on, and I think you've shed some light there for us. Thank you so much.